Hey, fellow problem solvers, Colfax Math here today, working on math test success. Today we're going to work on chapter 20, test taking strategies. These are really important. And then we're going to have a practice multiple choice test at the end. This book, this series of videos is all about you being successful in any standardized math test, specifically ASVAB, arithmetic reasoning, and mathematical knowledge sections. How this book works is there are 25 chapters in there with 25 corresponding videos. You want that book out in front of you, taking notes inside of the book, pausing the video, doing practice problems before I do them, unpause the video, and then watch how I do them. A lot of tips and tricks you could pick up by doing that. You get the book free online at mathtestsuccess.com. There's a link down below. Or you can buy that book on Amazon and then just get the paper book delivered to you and then take this seriously. The more you practice, the better you get. That's just how all standardized tests work. You don't need to really have this great depth of math knowledge, but you need to understand how standardized math tests work. All right, with all that said, let's go ahead and get started with chapter 20, test taking strategies. You really want to pace yourself. So one of the main things you want to do on practice tests is set a timer, know how much time you have, know how many problems there are. So if you got 30 problems in 1 hour, 30 problems in 60 minutes, that means you have about 2 minutes per problem. You never really want to spend more than that allotted amount on any one problem. If you feel like you're close, you mark it and then go back to it to work on it if you have a little bit of extra time. On all these tests, all the problems have the same weight. So you don't want to spend a ton of time on a really hard one that you might not get anyway, so that you miss a bunch of easy ones. So pacing is really important. Prioritize, again, it is really important. You do not miss the easy problems that you know you can do. So you set a pacing so you never spend more than the allotted time on any one problem, so you could get to every problem. And then you want to circle ones that look like they're easy, that you want to go back to, and maybe put a different notation on ones that like you don't even know what they're talking about. Don't dwell. That means like if you get stuck on a problem, don't get worked up over it. Just mark it that you didn't do it and go back to it later. Start the next problem completely fresh. Don't let that test get into your mind. And then most testing sites have a clock up, but you always want to wear a watch and know that, after 15 problems, you should be at about a 30-minute mark. So both when you're taking practice tests and the actual test, you want to watch on and you want to kind of keep track of time. That is a very large part of all standardized math tests. Okay, one strategy for being successful are elimination strategies. Usually on multiple choice tests, there are 4 possible answers. If you have no idea at all what it means and you guess, that means you have a 1 in 4 likelihood of getting it right, 25%. However, if you can eliminate one answer, then you have a 1 in 3 chance. Your likelihood of getting it right goes from 25% to 33%. But if you can eliminate 2 answers, now your likelihood of guessing goes from 1 in 4 to 1 in 2. It doubles. And a lot of the time, whether you understand the problem or not, there are a series of answers on there that don't even make sense. Like let's say you have 4 solutions, 3 of them are in miles per hour, and one of them is in miles. Well, it's not going to be that one. It has to be one of the other 3. So you can eliminate that one answer and then guess between the 3, increasing your likelihood of getting it right. Estimate. You always want to use some estimation. You're circling key points, and you want to keep track of a number place. That is such a big idea in all of math and such a big part of these problems. So if you have 50 times 50, it's going to be a 25, but then you really need to think about how many zeros do you want on there. Well, 50 times 50, I do 5 times 5, 25, and then I have to add 2 zeros on there to get 2,500. Probably one of those answers will be 250 instead of that 2,500, just to see if you could keep track of place values and overall estimation. A lot of these problems on both the arithmetic reasoning and math knowledge, you could figure out just using a good logical thought process. The reason why standardized math tests are so valuable in estimating people's ability to do a job is it's a question whether or not you have a logical thought process. So do you kind of go through things logically or emotionally? And if you go through them logically, you're going to come up with the right answer more times than not. And that's why using logic is so important. If you don't really feel like you've developed that, then you got to do more and more and more practice. The reason why math is required in school is because it is the one way we teach students how to be logical. So if you kind of missed out on a lot of that, go through this math course and develop those logical thought processes. You want to plug in answers, and what that means is if I have 2x equals 10, and I have my answers down below and I can't remember how to solve equations, I just take those values and plug them in and see if they work. If they work, it's the correct answer. If they don't work, you could cross them out. So even if you're running out of time plugging in answers, you cross out 1, doesn't work, you cross out B, doesn't work. Now you're left with 2 choices, and now your likelihood of guessing between those 2 is 1 and 2, 50%. Okay, you really want to understand the question types. So many of these are multiple choice, usually 4 answers, and you want to choose a correct answer from a list of those. Quantitative comparisons are really common, which is a more valuable number, or which is a more valuable choice. So a lot of those quantitative comparisons are just a bunch of fractions and decimals, and seeing if you could compare everything in the same unit so that you could compare them and figure out which one's the greatest or least. Grid-in numeric entry, this is really uncommon on the ASVAB, but common on like the SAT and other standardized math tests. Just means you have these little blocks and you have to put it in like sentence form, just like I do on so many of the problems here. Word problems, we spent a lot of time on word problems in this book so far. The key is you got ideally transfer that sentence, the problem, to a quick picture, turn that picture into an equation, solve that equation. Getting good at that is really about slowing down and practicing those word problems. A lot of people say, oh, I don't like those. Well, you don't like them because there's so many pieces to them, right? You got to have good reading comprehension. You got to transfer words to pictures, pictures to equations, and then solve the equation. A lot of pieces. The only way you get good at all those pieces is practice. You got to do more and more practice. Now I'm going over a lot of strategies here. Pause the video, jot down ideas you have, think about them, and then we're going to go through a practice test here where I'm going to highlight some of these techniques in different kinds of problems. On multiple choice tests, it is really important you read carefully and methodically, circling key numbers and identifying key words. So many of these math problems are really about reading comprehension, converting a sentence into a numeric expression. Before you just look at the answers, cover the answers and see if you could solve that multiple choice problem, and then look down to see if your answer is there. Check your work. If there is time, always go back and verify your work. It is a math test, meaning that almost always you could take your solution, plug it back into the problem, and see if it works. Again, that is only if you have the time to do that. And then avoid pattern matching. Don't assume a pattern is the correct answer. Those answers are randomly generated. They are kind of made up with common errors of doing the problem in a way that a lot of people make the mistake. So a lot of them are distractors, but they are presented there in a random fashion. So don't think, I picked C last time, I shouldn't pick C this time. That is not true. Okay, on quantitative comparison strategies, you got to really make sure everything is in the same units or the same form. If you're looking at fractions, they all need a common denominator. Usually there's a little trick or technique in the problem to see what's going to be the best common way to look at them. You could always take a number, plug it in, and see if it works. Think about a very large value or a very small value and plug those in and see if you could recognize something from that. And then always there's going to be some sort of special case. usually like a common math idea that they're going to throw in there to see if you know that. Word problem strategies, you really want to read carefully. Again, you want to understand the context, circling key points. This is really important. Identify the unknown. That means, what are they actually asking you? Are they asking you to find the length of a side or the value of x? If they're asking you to find the length of a side and the first step is to find the value of x, well, the first answer, or one of the answers in there, will be the value of x. It is only a reading comprehension problem at that point, so make sure you really identify what they are asking you. Translate, convert the words into mathematical expressions, solve those expressions, and if there's time permitting, always check your answers. You really don't want to miss an easy one that you got right by rushing to get to a really hard one. So if there's time, check your answers. This is just common test-taking strategy for anything. You really want to sleep well. I know it's easy to get worked up the night before, but do all the things that make you sleep well. Wake up early, on time. Don't put any rush in your day. Eat a good breakfast. You're going to do great. If you practice, you will perform well. So make sure you do enough practice so that you're very confident. Stay positive. Do the best you can. That's all you can. There's no point to get worked up over anything. You're going to do the best you can. And if you want to improve that, just put in more time practicing. Review your work, and then make sure you got all the right paperwork, pencils, whatever you need. Okay? So just a quick key ideas again. The key takeaways from this chapter: time management is essential. Eliminate possible answers that don't make sense or that you could be sure that are not the correct solution. Understand the question type. Figure out what they are asking you. Practice applying these strategies to improve your score, and then you're going to do great. You're going to do the best you can. So have a good mindset on it. If you want to do better, just work harder. Just do more work. Not the day of, going into the event. All right, let's go ahead and take a few quick questions on test-taking strategies. For each of the following scenario, choose the best course of action. So I am not looking for a right answer. I am looking for the best course of action during a multiple choice exam. Circle the letter of your choice. So I've highlighted the key words. I've identified the type of problems. And I'm not looking for the correct answer. I am looking for the best answer. Number one, you encounter a question that you find very difficult and are unsure how to solve. What should you do? Spend a lot of time? I don't know what the correct answer is, but I do remember reading that time allotment's really important, so that cannot be it. Immediately guess? No, we talk about being thoughtful. That cannot be it. I've eliminated those two answers. Skip the question, make a small mark next to it, and come back to it. That seems right, but I'm not going to circle it yet. Let me read D. Ask the teacher for help. That doesn't make sense. I cross that out. That's what I thought it was. Correct answer, answer C. Fair bit of marking up on my exam. Number two, you finished answering all the questions on the test and have time left. What is the most effective way to use this time? Well, before I even look at my answers, I know it's going to be about go back and check my work. Relax and put your head down? No. Quickly scan through your answers? No, you could have skipped problems. It's a possibility. I'm not going to cross it out. Go back and carefully reread each question and check your work? Absolutely. So I know it's correct answer C. When reading a multiple choice question, so we've identified the type of problem, what should you do before looking at the answer choices? Well, actually, before I look at those answer choices, what should I do? Think about what the correct answer is. So let's think about what the right answer is. That is the right answer. Look for the answer that looks familiar. Try to solve the problem or answer the question in your mind first. We knew it was that one. But let's read the rest of them. Read only the first and last answers. That doesn't make any sense. We talked about them being randomly put out there. assume the longest answer is usually correct. So it is definitely answer B. Problem number 4, you are down to 2 answers on a multiple choice question and are unsure which one is correct. What's a good strategy? Pick the one that looks more complicated. That doesn't make sense. Guess randomly. That doesn't make sense. Try to recall any similar problems you've solved or any clues and questions that might help you eliminate one of the choices. That seems really good. I'm not going to circle it yet. I'm going to read the last answer first. Always pick B or C. That doesn't make sense. Cross that one out. Correct answer, answer C right there. We got one more problem here on multiple choice test taking. And then we're going to look at some math problems and apply all of our learning about test taking strategies to these math problems. What is the importance of reading the entire question, all the answer choices carefully before selecting your answer? It's not that important. It's specifically telling you it is important, so that doesn't make sense. You might miss important details or keywords. That seems like it's a really good answer. I'm not sure if it's the best, but it's a good answer. It helps you finish the test. No. It confuses you. No. So that is, in fact, the best choice. Answer B right there. So that's our little section right there on test taking strategies. Now we're going to apply those strategies to an arithmetic reasoning sample test, multiple choice test. And what you really want to do here is you want to pause that video and do these problems before I do them. I've got a few comments that I go too quickly, which I am trying to slow down a little bit. But you also need to do a lot of pausing, do the problems before I do them, unpause, watch how I do it. You might develop your own cool tips and tricks, or you might learn some additional ones from me. So what I want to do on this problem is I want to go slow, but I don't want to, daydream or waste time. I want to mark it up and be thorough, see if I can eliminate answers that don't make sense, see if I can find the answer before I go any further, and look at the choices. So let's go ahead and do this. A mechanic charges $75 per hour. So I have $75 per hour. So that's a rate, plus a $30 service fee. So I know I'm going to be adding that on afterward. A repair takes 3.5 hours. What is the total cost? So I know that I charge $75 an hour times 3.5 hours. My hours cancel. That's going to give me a dollar amount. So I'm going to do 75 times 3.5. 25, carry the 2, 37, placeholder. 15, carry the 1, 21, 22. I add down and get 5, 12, carry the 1, 6, 2. Decimals over one place here. So decimals over one place here to get 262.50. I could go over there and circle answer A and I'd be wrong. But luckily, I marked all this up right here and it says add $30 to it. So I have to add $30 to that to get the total cost. $262.50 plus 30 gives me $292.50. Correct answer is in fact answer B right there. It's what they call a distractor. You do all this work, you're pleased with yourself, you came up with an answer, that answer is right there, but it's not what they're asking. They're asking for the total cost. I caught that because I put that plus 30 on right there. All right, let's move this test up. Let's do a few more of these. This one right here, 15% of a number is 30. I have to convert that right to an equation. 15%, remember that's an arrow shooting it over twice, is 0.15 of a number. Well, I don't know what that number is. So it's 15 times x is 30. So I know that number is really big. Times 15% equals 30. So to solve for x, I divide both sides by 0.15. So I have 30 divided by 0.15. And then that's a fraction that falls over this way. So I'm saying 0.15 into 30. I'm going to move that decimal over 1, 2. Move it over here, 1, 2. 15 into 30 twice, 0, 0. So 15% of a number is 30. That number is 200. Again, that's not my answer. Once I have that number, it says what is 45% of that number. So I have to do 200 times 0.45. Well, 0.45 times the 2, I just double it, is 90. So 45% of 200 is 90. It's going to be answer B. Again, really the important thing here is to identify what it is you are looking for. Spend all that time finding that number. Then once you get that number, then you multiply it by 45%. Okay, number 3, a recipe calls for 2/3 a cup of flour. You want to make half. So that's a word, but I know the equivalent number for that word is a half. How much flour do you need? So I take my original amount, I multiply it by 1/2, multiply across the top to get 2, across the bottom to get 6. That is your answer, but it's not up there. It is a correct answer, but not in reduced form. So I reduce that fraction. 2 goes into here once, into here 3 times to get 1/3. Correct answer, answer B right there. Okay, let's move this up. Let's look at number 4 here. A train travels 120 miles in 2 hours. That's a rate. So it goes 30 minutes, actually. So it goes 120 miles in 2 hours, 30 minutes. 30 minutes is half an hour. So 2.5 hours. What is its average speed in miles per hour? Well, I have miles per hour. That's what I want. And I know that if I were to do 120 divided by 2, it would be 60. So it's got to be less than that. So I could cross that one out. 48 and 50 are both pretty close. 40 is pretty far away. So I think it's going to be one of those two. I'm going to do the division out. Fraction falling over that way. 120 divided by 2.5. It looks a little hard, but it's probably going to work out pretty well. I move this over once, this over once. 25 into 12 doesn't go in there. 25 into 120, it goes in there 4 times. That's 100. Subtract here, 25 goes into 200 for 8 times to give me 48. That is going to be miles per hour. Correct answer, answer B. Number 5, I bought a shirt, originally $40, is on sale for 1/4 or 25% off. How much did she pay for the shirt? Well, it's originally $40. I'm buying it on sale. It's got to be less. That can't be it. It's not that great of a sale. It's 25% off or 1/4 off. So it's not going to go down to $10. If it were half off, 50% off, it would be $20, so it can't be that. So it has to be the remaining $30. Or 1/4 of 40 is 10. 10 off, 40 minus 10 gives you that same 30 right there. 4 notebooks cost $6. How much are 10 notebooks at the same rate? So I know it's a rate problem. I know I have $6 per 4 notebooks. So I've kind of got the key points. I've converted all that into an equation. I think I'm going to reduce that. That means it would be, I'm going to cut it in half, $3 for 2 notebooks. But I want price per notebook. I'm going to cut it in half again. Half of 3 is $1.50 per notebook, per 1 notebook. So it's $1.50 per notebook. I am buying 10 notebooks. So I have to take that $1.50 times that 10 to get $15. Okay, if you're new to this channel, think about subscribing. This thing's all about you being successful on any standardized math exam. I built these courses. If you kind of miss some of that math, earlier on in life, as a way for you to get caught up, you really need to have pencil and paper in front of you. It takes work. That's the only way anything good ever comes about, is through work. So you got to work your way through these problems. You could buy that book on Amazon. You could support the channel by doing that, or you could download it for free. My goal is really for you to be as successful as you can be on any standardized math exam. All right, number 7, what is the value of 2 to the power of 3 plus 16 minus 5? This right here, sometimes you see that notation. That means the same thing as that. So it's 2 to the 3rd plus 16 minus 5. I immediately identify this as a check on, do you know the order of operations? PEMDAS, you might remember that from an earlier chapter. You have to do parentheses first, then exponents, then multiplication, then addition, right? So I got to do this first. 16 minus 5 is 11. So I've done my parentheses. Now I do my exponents. That means 2 times 2, 4, times 2, 8. So then I have 8 plus 11, or 19 right there. John works for 40 hours per week and earns 15 per hour. He works 5 extra hours at a 1.5 times. So overtime is 1.5. What's his total earnings? Well, 40 times 15, I could do 40 times 10, 400. And then that 5 is going to be 40 times 5, 200. So 400 and 200 is he makes 600 a week in regular time. So if he's working overtime, he's not going to make that 600. It has to be more. He makes 15 an hour at 1.5 times. So I could think of that 15 times 1 is 15. Half of 15 is 750. So 15 plus that 750 would give me 2250 as an hourly rate, or I can multiply it out. Just kind of a way to multiply numbers in your head. 1.5 multiplied by 1 plus multiplied by 0.5 and add those together. Multiply it out to get 25, carry the 2, 7. Placeholder 5, 1, add them together to get 2250 per hour. So this is how much he makes per hour at overtime, and he has 5 extra hours. So I do 2250 times that 5. I'm going to see it's going to be a little bit more than 100, right? 20 times 5 is about 100, but it's more than 20. So it's going to be a little bit more than 700. Only answer that works is 712.50. So if I was running out of time, I could do that by estimating. Or if I have the time, I could go and multiply this out. 25, carry the 2. 12, carry the 1. 11, decimal place is 1 over. 112.50 is what he makes in overtime. 600 is regular pay. Add them together to get 712.50. Correct answer, answer C right there. All right, a couple more problems right here. And then we'll be done. Hopefully, not only are you seeing kind of what these math problems are about, but you are developing these strategies to do well on any standardized math test. You can see why they're so hard is because you got a sentence. You got to take that sentence, transfer it into like a picture, transfer that picture into an equation, then solve, and then go back and really answer, make sure you are answering what they're asking you. A scale has a map has a scale 1 inch equals 50 miles. There's my picture. 2 cities are 3.5 inches apart. What is the actual distance? So I have my scale. My map says that. I want to know how many miles is this. I go 1 times 3.5 is equal to 3.5. So I have to multiply this by 3.5 to give me that number. Well, 50 times 3 is 150, but I have to do more than that. So I know these answers are out. I could eliminate those immediately. 50 times 4 is 200, so I eliminate that. That's the only answer that works, right? So I don't even have to do that multiplication out to get to that 175. What is 35% of 80? So I convert that percent to a decimal. So I want 80 times 35%. Well, I know 80 times 50% is 40, so it's got to be less than 40. 80 times a quarter is 20, right? 20 plus 20 plus 20 plus 20. So it can't be a 20, so it has to be one of these. Let me multiply it out. 0, 40. Placeholder, 3 times that is 0, 24. Add them together, get 2, 8, 0, 0. Places over 1, 2, so I'm over 1, 2. Correct answer, answer 28 right there. All right, well, there it is. Hopefully you made it all the way to the end here. I can't say enough how much I appreciate you watching and supporting this channel. I'd like to be there along with you as you prepare yourself for any standardized math exam. So good luck, keep studying, keep working.